Kai-Fu Lee is a world-leading figure in AI, with a career spanning 4 decades in the research, development, and implementation of the technology.
I found there's actually this new exciting area of study called artificial intelligence, which was about studying how humans think and make decisions and how computers might be taught to do the same. So I thought this would be the final exploration of the human race.
Kai-Fu Lee was an early pioneer in speech recognition and a world-renowned computer scientist. He's worked at the likes of Google and Microsoft and was president of Google China. He now heads Sinovation Ventures, a VC firm focused on tech companies in China.
The amazing thing about AI is that you can feed it more data than it needs. It will basically figure out what's useful. So once you have data, you just keep throwing it in.
In this episode of Leaders with Lacqua, we talk to Kai-Fu Lee about his career in AI, how big data has given power to tech companies, and how the advancement of artificial technology has a geopolitical side.
I think both countries are, we're seeing tremendous AI companies leveraging the strengths of each country. In the case of US, enterprise software. In the case of China, manufacturing.
Kai-Fu Lee, thank you so much for joining us on Leaders with Lacqua. So how did you choose AI as your field of expertise?
It was actually my freshman year in college back in '79 that I started to study computer science at Columbia. And I found there's actually this new exciting area of study called artificial intelligence, which was about studying how humans think and make decisions and how computers might be taught to do the same. So I thought this would be the final exploration of the human race. And I was a bit naive and very optimistic and felt this was just the most exciting thing to do, that I could, help realize all those things we saw in science fiction and go deeply understand the most important thing, that is the mystery of the universe.
Yeah, just a small thing, the mystery of the universe. And then you started working on machine learning and pattern recognition. What did you see in computers and AI then that the others missed?
Then I found out how difficult the problem was and how little that we actually understood about the human cognition, that I think someone who's not an expert in the area would think that to make computers intelligent, we first understand how we become intelligent. Then we teach the computers just like we teach our children. And then I tried to do that. Other researchers tried to do that. And that really didn't work out. And I stumbled upon a field called machine learning. And that field basically says, hey, wait a minute, it is not necessarily necessary to replicate the human brain. The computer has a different brain. It has a CPU and some memory and storage, and it thinks faster than we do, but it thinks differently. It thinks about data. So maybe there is another way, which is forget about how the human cognition works. Forget about why we make the decisions we make. If we just feed the computer lots of data and tell it what's the right answer, when it's really right, and then we keep showing more and more and more data, and one day maybe it would figure out how to make decisions, classifications, and predictions. And that was the road I embarked in the mid-'80s, late '80s, when I started my PhD at Carnegie Mellon.
And Kai-Fu, I think you're also talking there about the tensions of some of the rule-based approach, right, that we saw back then, because it wasn't easy to see exactly what the right way to understand AI was, whether it was rule-based, so you inject a lot of information, or whether it's neural networks. How did you choose what field you wanted to be involved in?
Well, for me, honestly, it was trial and error. When I went to Carnegie Mellon in 1983, my advisor, Raj Reddy, who later became a Turing Award recipient, suggested I should try expert systems because that was his expertise and his intuition. And I tried it for a year. And then I saw that it wasn't going to become scalable. And yes, it could still be made to work someday, but I needed to do my PhD thesis in 4 or 5 years. And I wanted my thesis to make a big difference. And I didn't think rule-based system would do it. That that computers just have different structure of the brain than we do. By teaching it all the rules of how we make decision may not be the right way. And then I started looking at using machine learning algorithms, the equivalent of neural networks, and then I made some progress and some more progress. And then one day I drummed enough courage to ask my advisor, can I please try this other approach? And he was very supportive, very generous, and said, it's okay, you work on this different approach, I will give you all my support, including machines and data. And with his help, I was able to demonstrate that speech recognition of any speaker was actually feasible. And that was my PhD thesis in 1988, which was viewed as a significant progress, if not a breakthrough at the time.
Up next, big data collides with artificial intelligence. Kai-Fu Lee's views on the power of information and how that's given market power to the social media giants.
Even if you were able to build exactly this software, the same pixels and buttons and interfaces and users and clicks and content and newsfeed, you still can't compete with Facebook because your new company doesn't know how to send things to make users click and pay.
Before rising up the ranks of tech giants like Microsoft, Apple, and Google, Kai-Fu Lee started his career at Carnegie Mellon, where he built a computer program that defeated the world champion in the strategy game Othello. It was a forerunner of the most noted milestone in artificial intelligence, when IBM's supercomputer Deep Blue beat chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov. It's been referred to as the brain's last stand, the moment the human race was found to be less intelligent than machines. I asked Kai-Fu Lee how he felt watching it unfold and whether he was surprised.
At the time, I knew that would happen because it was a fellow student and friend, C.B. Shu, who made the Deep Blue really happen. Because he and I talked about the progress of machine learning, about the computer games, and about the complexity of chess. And actually, I worked on Computer Othello and beat the world champion in 1985. So he and I more or less plotted hardware progress that it was likely to become a grandmaster or even the world champion in another 10 or 15 years. So we were more or less on track because it was the same technologies, except made super fast because CB was a brilliant hardware engineer. So he built an amazing supercomputer designed to do one thing, play chess. So I wasn't surprised at all. What was surprising was then we looked at the game of Go and we said, wow, this is exponentially harder than chess. I don't know if when AI can beat that, be the best human Go player, maybe never. And I was really more proven wrong in the much more recently by AlphaGo.
Kai-Fu, talk to me a little bit about where we are in understanding the human brain. Are we at 5% of understanding it? Are we at 10%? Or are we really just scratching the surface?
Certainly at 5% or lower. We know some things about parts of the brain and their functions. We can look at a scan of the brain and guess some things about it, but we don't really know. People talk about downloading and uploading from or to our brain, but we don't know what format they're stored. We don't know how many things that we take as granted, like common sense, intuition works. And we don't also know how we do reasoning, analytical thinking, analogies, strategizing, understanding across domains, and certainly not creativity and doing things out of the box. And we have no idea where we get our self-awareness and our emotions and how we gain compassion and love and have emotions like that. So we really don't have any linkage of how to do these things, how our brain does these things. And so I think we're still decades away from achieving that.
I mean, there's a turning point in 2012 where we look at neural networks. What exactly is an artificial neuron and how does it work? I know you've tried to explain it beautifully in your book, talking about layers, but that really changed the way that AI could actually function going forward.
Right. So neural networks is a set of technologies invented by three brilliant researchers. Many of them began around 30 or 40 years ago, as I did. And they ventured to propose that if we build a set of neural networks that are somewhat roughly architected like our brain, so but instead of teaching it rules, you would show it examples. And the examples will be fed into the neural network, and then you tell it what answer you want to get. Then the neural network would self-adjust to get this piece of data to lead to that piece of outcome. So let's say I train it with pictures of dogs and cats and label each dog with the word dog and each cat with the word cat. And then if I showed it tens of thousands of examples, it would learn to separate dogs and cats. Then you can see how that can be led to speech recognition by showing it words that people have spoken or the speech signals people have spoken. And you can have language understanding to go from text to meaning. You can go from evaluating things that have financial impact. Like these are the attributes of people who borrow money and pay back. These are the attributes of people who borrow money and default, and use that to judge when the bank should lend money to people. And a company like Facebook can look at all the attributes of a person, what they have read and clicked on, and be given all the possible news items and show the one that's most likely to elicit a reaction from the user. So that's why the internet companies are so powerful, because they know so much about us. They can keep us showing us things that will make us click and watch and pay.
When we talk about actually some of the data used to understand some of these algorithms, the right algorithms, what kind of data are they using? Is it the one from the social media? Is it the one that we have on our phone? What exactly is being collected, and what's most useful to generate AI?
The amazing thing about AI is that you can feed it more data than it needs. It will basically figure out what's useful. So once you have data, you just keep throwing it in. So if you happen to have all my Facebook click-through transaction data, that's pretty good in judging what videos I will click and watch and which ones I'll buy. But if you happen to also know my age, where I live, what I bought on Amazon, what I searched on Google, that can all be fed in. And that is exactly why it allows big internet companies, the bigger they are, the more data they have, and then the higher their prediction power, the more money they make, then they keep getting bigger, which is why there's concerns about companies that are very large not having too much of our data. And if you are starting from scratch, let's say you want to build a Facebook competitor, you don't have any of that data. So even if you were able to build exactly this software, the same pixels and buttons and interfaces and users and clicks and content and newsfeed, you still can't compete with Facebook, because your new company doesn't know how to send things to make users click and pay.
So how much widespread disruption could we see, and will it actually lead to mass unemployment?
Well, one of the capabilities clearly is that AI will first learn to do tasks that are routine. So anything that we humans do that are routine are, I think, in danger of displacement. So people who think they do repetitive tasks, routine tasks, whether it's blue collar at an assembly line or white collar because someone is mostly pushing papers, getting approvals, sending routine emails, answering customer emails and phone calls, well, those things will all be replaced, as well as many other tasks like driving, transportation, moving things around, deliveries, and many even jobs that are commercial in warehouses, and probably somewhere between 40 and 50% of the tasks that humans do can be routinely replicated and beaten by AI at essentially zero marginal cost. So that displacement will undoubtedly happen. At the same time, AI will also amplify our capabilities. AI can make great suggestions for someone who's using their strategic thinking, creativity, and ideas and business thinking to become a better CEO, a better scientist, a better physician, and so on. And also, I think AI will be a great tool for many jobs that may become more service in nature, so that a healthcare professional would rely on AI diagnosis, and a teacher would rely on AI to give homework assignments and tests, but still do the teaching himself or herself. So it would be symbiotic, enabling, amplifying, but also displacing, depends on case by case.
What are you most excited about? Is it the field of medicine? I don't know whether cancer treatment will be significantly enhanced by the use of AI, and whether that is actually maybe the most exciting use in the next 5 to 10 years.
I think general healthcare is the area I'm most excited about. And the reason is that it's poised for a breakthrough. As I mentioned before, in any field, there's a tremendous amount of data that will enable the ability to use AI. And the more data there is, the harder it is for human to comprehend the data, then the more powerful will the AI be. And for healthcare data, we have not only our hospital records, but also blood tests, genetic sequencing, wearable computing outputs, all of which can be fed in a way that no human doctors can comprehend. So that can help with diagnosis, prescription, reading of radiology, and also preventive maintenance and post-illness care, but also, as you said, drug discovery, coming up with new treatments by combining the tremendous amount of data and observations we see and letting this giant data crunching AI power crunch all the data that's coming from healthcare.
Coming up, the geopolitics of artificial intelligence. As the US and China try to turbocharge their AI capabilities, Kai-Fu Lee gives his assessment of the opportunities and the risks that this rapidly developing technology could bring.
I think all companies, individuals, and countries need to understand the impact of AI and what can and need to be done. And I give autonomous weapons as the most obvious example that countries need to look at.
Kai-Fu Lee is one of the world's leading thinkers in AI and has a unique position, having worked for US tech giants inside China. We got into the geopolitics of artificial intelligence, and I started by asking who would win the race between the world's two largest economies in the decades to come.
I think both US and China have tremendous strengths in AI. I think their strengths are actually a bit different. The commercial companies in the commercial areas, I think US tends to be much stronger in enterprise applications like C3 AI and Palantir and companies like that. And China is now showing a lot of progress in robotics, especially for manufacturing and warehouses. And the two countries are both developing great companies in autonomous vehicles, healthcare, and internet. But largely, those companies don't compete against each other due to the current geopolitical tendencies. So I think both countries are, we're seeing tremendous AI companies leveraging the strengths of each country. In the case of US, enterprise software. In the case of China, manufacturing. So I hope AI will end up making companies in both countries winners.
In China, are Chinese companies looking to, have more of an influence domestically rather than internationally, or will that change over time?
I think right now, most of the Chinese AI companies are focused domestically. And should they go abroad, they're more likely to go to countries that have a strong commercial relationship with China and no limitations on technologies. So perhaps the Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa would be more likely, maybe South America, whereas I think US will tend to have more influence on the traditional areas like English-speaking countries and Europe and Japan. So I think each country will naturally go to the regions where it has some advantage or it has fewer limitations.
Kai-Fu, what does the world look like in 40 years? So, is it going to be like the Terminator, and you get asked that very often at dinner parties, or what's your vision on where we'll end up?
I think it's two very different possible outcomes. As you know, I wrote the book AI 2041. We try to look 20 years out. You want me to look 40 years out. I do think we have two possible outcomes. There's not a lot of scenarios in the middle. I think either we get our act together and figure out how countries can collaborate, and finally realize there are many issues we can work together on, like climate and healthcare, and that in a positive exemplars lead the world and technology problems are overcome, then we really reach a world of plenitude, where all these technologies will basically eradicate poverty and hunger, and also positive uses will make us live healthier. That's one outcome. The other is that technologies can be misused by people. I don't think technologies will become evil itself and like a Terminator or a dystopia like that, but I do think they provide very powerful weapon to bad people. And terrorists, for example, or countries that choose to use them in a very damaging way to the rest of the world, because I think technology amplifies people's capabilities, and using, take autonomous weapons as an example, it's something that could wipe out lots of people targetedly. So I think the opportunity to do bad things and the consequences of doing bad things will change, so that bad people will be able to do more terrible things with less costs. And in that bad scenario, the countries aren't able to contain these bad people with a malevolent intent, and they, empowered and emboldened by technology weapons, can really lead to negative outcomes.
So, Kai-Fu, what does that mean? That governments need to step up their understanding of AI and not be left behind, so that it's not only private companies that actually are at the forefront of this revolution?
Yes, I think all companies, individuals, and countries need to understand the impact of AI and what can and need to be done. And I give autonomous weapons as the most obvious example that countries need to look at, because they are incredibly dangerous. You can build a $1,000 device that can be a personal assassinator, bringing no risk to you. Imagine what that happens in the hands of, terrorists. And I think that's the area people need to step up first. And also we need to watch for other dangers that AI and other technologies like quantum computers, like CRISPR, AI is not the only technology. There are probably half a dozen similar technologies that could lead to huge disasters for humanity, if not bring us to an existential threat.
Kai-Fu, you're truly a pioneer in your field. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
I would have told myself to take more risks and go after what I love, as opposed to listening too much to what one should do in one's place, because there's so much change. The only thing that isn't going to change is change itself. So become adaptive, be bold, and if you see something you want to devote your life to, do it. Don't worry about the risks. The younger you are, the less you have to risk, and the more risks you should take in order to make the biggest difference in the world.
Kai-Fu Lee, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.